You know that pink stuff you take for an upset stomach? What if I told you that inside there's a rare, beautiful metal? Yeah, seriously. Today, we're going to dive into a wild project that does exactly that, pulling pure metal out of hundreds of those little pink tablets. I mean, it sounds completely nuts, right? Like something out of a sci-fi movie. Can you actually turn common stomach medicine into a shiny, crystalline metal? Well, the answer is yes! It's complicated for sure, but definitely yes. So here's the deal. Most antacids you see, they use pretty simple stuff like calcium carbonate to calm your stomach. But Pepto-Bismol, it's different. Its main ingredient is something called bismuth subsalicylate. And that first word, bismuth, that's the key. It's the heavy metal we're after. And the mission here isn't just, can we do it? The real challenge is to take a whole bunch of these tablets, put them through this intense chemical process to get pure bismuth out, and then, for the grand finale, grow those amazing rainbow-colored crystals. Okay, so that brings us to our first big challenge, actually getting the metal out of the medicine. And let me tell you, this part is a total chemical gauntlet. We're talking tedious steps and a whole lot of things that can and do go wrong. All right, so the journey starts with, get this, 480 chewable tablets. And why the tablets instead of the pink liquid? Well, they pack more bismuth for your buck, basically. But the first step, what a grind. Every single one of those tablets had to be unwrapped by hand. Took a full half hour of just pure mind-numbing work. Once they're all crushed up, into a bath of hydrochloric acid they go. And the acid just goes to town right away. It dissolves all the bismuth, turning it into a liquid, while the other stuff kind of separates out and makes this foamy layer that just floats right on top. So far, so good, right? Everything seems to be going perfectly. And then it's time to filter. And this is where it all goes wrong. The whole mixture turns into this gummy, sticky disaster that clogs up everything and just stops the whole experiment dead in its tracks. And you can just feel the frustration in this quote, can't you? It's like some hidden enemy totally sabotaged the whole thing. An ingredient that was so annoying to deal with that if it had been spotted earlier, this whole project probably would have been scrapped before it even began. So what was the culprit? Something called pre-gelatinized starch. It's just a simple filler they put in pills, something that was totally missed on the label. And it turns out it's an absolute nightmare to filter. This stuff was the source of all that gooey, filter-clogging chaos. Getting past this starchy roadblock was a total marathon, not a sprint. The first attempt at filtering took half a day, and the solution was still all cloudy. The second pass, with a finer filter, took another half a day. So all in all, a full day of work was just gone, wasted on cleaning up this one tiny oversight. Okay, so with the liquid finally clear, we can move on to the really cool part, turning that liquid back into a solid metal. And yeah, this is where things literally start to heat up. And this secret ingredient for this transformation, you're not going to believe it. It's just regular old aluminum foil. Yep. You just drop some strips of foil into that acid solution, and it kicks off this really powerful reaction. So what's happening here is a process called chemical reduction. Basically, aluminum is more reactive than bismuth, so it just kind of donates its electrons to the bismuth ions that are floating around. That electron transfer forces the bismuth to turn back into solid metal atoms, and they literally just crash right out of the solution. But what you get isn't what you'd expect. It's not a shiny piece of metal. It's this fine black powder. And there's a really cool bit of physics behind this. The particles are so incredibly tiny that they trap light between them, so almost no light bounces back to your eye, and that's why it looks black. Okay, so we've got our metal, but it's a powder. So the next logical step is, how do you get all that powder to become one single, shiny piece of metal? Well, the answer is pretty obvious, right? You gotta melt it. But of course, it's not that simple. Melting brings its own set of problems. If you just heat this powder in the open air, it reacts with oxygen and turns into this useless, crumbly yellow stuff. The solution, though, is pretty clever. You pack the powder into a long test tube. When you heat it, any leftover water boils off, creating this little blanket of steam that pushes all the air and the oxygen out. That lets the metal melt down nice and clean. And there we have it, a solid piece of metal, finally. Which brings us to the last, and maybe the most delicate stage of this whole thing, growing those incredible bismuth crystals. So let's talk numbers for a sec. Theoretically, there were about 73 grams of bismuth in all those tablets. The final result? 43 grams of pure metal. That's a 60% recovery rate. Not perfect, but hey, it's a huge improvement over a previous try that only got 22% back. So definitely a win. Now, the real secret to this final step is all about temperature. To get those big, beautiful crystals, you have to cool the molten metal down really, really slowly and evenly. The problem is, with such a small amount of metal, it just loses its heat way too fast, which makes it super difficult to control. And this led to a bunch of failed attempts, which had to be frustrating. First try, cooling it in a glass vial. Nope, cooled way too fast. Second try, using a wire to try and seed a crystal. Nothing. But you know what they say? Third time's the charm. Using a special heating mantle and a lot of insulation finally gave it that slow, controlled cooling it needed for the crystals to actually grow. And oh man, the result was absolutely worth all that trouble. When the last of the liquid metal is poured off, you see what was hiding underneath. Those gorgeous, iconic staircase-shaped bismuth crystals. They're shimmering with this incredible rainbow of colors, which actually comes from a super thin layer of oxide on the surface. Just stunning. So after everything, the mind-numbing unwrapping, that sticky filtration mess, the tricky melting, and the super delicate crystal growing, you have to step back and ask the big question. Was it all worth it? From a practical standpoint, no way. It cost $120 for the tablets, plus 3 or 4 days of hard work. You could just buy pure bismuth for way, way less. But this project was never about being practical. It was about the incredible process, you know? The journey of turning medicine into metal. And I think this whole thing just leaves you with this one really cool question. If you can find this amazing, beautiful metal hiding in stomach medicine, what other incredible elements are out there hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered in the most ordinary things we use every day?